name is Meg Kids, and I did blue, violet, and yellow, orange. And this was a chance really for me to pull out everything I had in my stash and throw it on a table and play with it. I had a hard time seeing, I saw blue a lot more than I saw violet. So I had a lot of trouble with that. And I think there are some violets in here that are pure and not blue violet. But I learned a lot about contrast. I felt this was a lot about contrast.
It is, exactly.
And so I had fun playing the contrast. And there's actually paper in here. These beads are from my mother-in-law's jewelry that I had gotten after she passed away. So and I just love it.
Okay. Anything else you want to say? No? Okay. Are these just tacked on?
Yes, they're sewn on.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the color first, and then we'll talk about the design afterwards. Blue-violet is one of the hardest colors to find. Anybody who was trying to do that same color combination, you'll find that. And it's really hard to determine. And it's one of those colors that the best way to understand what blue-violet is to understand what it's not. And so you set it next to things that you are absolutely certain are violet and things that are absolutely certain that are blue. And if it's neither of those, then it's going to be a form of blue-violet. The dyes are very unstable, so it's hard to dye things blue-violet. So that's one of the reasons it's so difficult to find. I think that you definitely have blue violets in here, and here you have blue violets. I believe this is blue violet. The only one I think that is probably closer to violet is this one. And you can see that it's kind of different than the rest, right? Okay. You led with some really bold yellow oranges, lots of really bold yellow oranges. And so you're spot on with the color there. I kind of want to talk about each of the individual pieces here a little bit and then talk about the piece as a whole. When we look at each individual little mini quilt, we have a really nice balance of color. It's dominated by the blue-violet, and the yellow-orange is acting sort of like highlights. This one right here is just very, very nice. We have dark shades of the yellow-orange. Here we have the pure hue, we have a tint, we have a dark tone, so it's a nice mixture. Here we have the pure hue and a tint and dark shades or tones on deep dark tones and shades of the blue-violet. And here again, we have a whole mixture of the yellow-orange on top of a dark, kind of a violet. Okay? I think the 5 pieces as a whole, as individuals, are very, very well done. What do we think about how they're set on this background?
Seems too symmetrical to me.
Seems a little too symmetrical. What is that? Does it make it feel kind of configured, sort of, and not necessarily in a good way? What about the amount of negative space? Too much?
Yeah.
Because it's not really relating with those centerpieces.
Given how bright it is.
Right. Now she tried, I think, to get everything to relate by this, right? So this is your link, your visual link, right? Okay. In my opinion, I think the piece would be much better served if the background were about 2/3 this size. So if we took off 1/3 of it, so about right here, but actually I think it needs to be maybe about right here and then about right here. Okay? Luckily that's easy to do because she could just cut that off and put a new binding on. And these are just tacked on. All right? Now, when you have 5, and 5's a good thing to work with, you have to lead with one. And then you let the other things support it. Naturally, which one do you think you would lead with?
I thought the largest.
The largest one, exactly, exactly. So when we go to set that on here again, putting the largest one in the center actually makes it look like a bullseye rather than a focal point. Okay? So if you were to set your big piece, let's say here, and again it's on one of those axes of thirds. There is no axes of thirds in the center of the piece. Okay? And the axes of thirds. And then we take our next most important one. Which one do you think that is?
The top right with the yellow.
I think it's kind of a crapshoot. I think because this one mimics this one, so it could be this one, and it's got a good size to it. This one you would think maybe that, but this actually melds into the background. and doesn't really show up as much as one would think. So I think she could go with, you know, I think this one, but it could be this one too. And whatever it is you want to put it diagonally across from it to balance it. And then you're going to put at least one or the other next to it here. And perhaps the weakest one gets tucked underneath this one. Okay? So we're creating a focal point and a balance point. Yes?
What if she added a darker border to the upper right corner, another match behind that one to show us?
Absolutely, that would show off better. Yeah, absolutely. And she could say, well, I really like the way this is set. And so she could come in and put in a border of dark blue-violet in here that will make this yellow field much smaller. If she were to do that, I would say about 3 inches wide.
Wow.
Yeah. So here, a border there. And then you could bring these pieces in a bit more and kind of change the setting a bit. This is a very fun idea. I think you could still use it in a slightly different way so that it has a better relationship too. These are squares and rectangles and very geometric. And then this is pretty loosey-goosey, but not quite loosey-goosey enough. So if you're going to go way far away from what you already have, go way far away. Don't just kind of, okay, you get it?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So you were striving for asymmetry because of the different size pieces and the different positioning of them, but then you laid them in a very symmetrical way. And so it's feeling kind of forced. Is that a good, would you think that's a good word for it, kind of forced? Okay. So color, great. Idea, really great. Embellishments, very, very well done. But I would think about kind of repositioning them on a negative space.
Okay.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments? No?
Well, the pieces and the different texture, I think is just, she used those so well.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and I think I'd have a hard time finding out which one, or figuring out which one's my favorite, because each one is so different.
I agree.
They're similar, but they're different, and it's just a great use of texture.
Well, yeah, individually, these are so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
They really are.
Awesome.
And the scattering of them kind of makes them not feel as important as they should be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Heather. When you maybe change the arrangement and go more asymmetrical, I think you'll really see those pieces for the quality they are.
Right.
Right now, I can't focus on them.
Right, exactly. They're too far apart. There's too much negative space separating them. And this actually, instead of feeling like a link, feels like a, it kind of, what would be the word, confuses the eye, sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any other quilting? Could you have quilted it in a different? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but would there be another angle or a style or something in terms of the background that would affect that? Or
I don't think so. I think that if she, let's say she wanted to stay with this exact presentation and improve on it rather than changing anything in the foreground. If she had used a very dark, dull yellow-orange here, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
But because it's so bold and so pure and so intense, it is trying very hard to overwhelm everything she has going on here. And the stories here are so very important, delicate, wonderful little informative stories about interaction between textures and products and embellishments and fabric, that they're not really getting the attention that they deserve because this background keeps saying, but I'm really fabulous. And so we have a competition. Yes.
I'm not saying this should be done, but a question on a bold background, whatever it is, but to quilt it with a deliberately contrasting.
Makes it even more attention grabbing.
Okay, in a good way?
No, in a bad way. In a bad way.
That would not have connected them more.
No, it would not have connected them more. If she had quilted this with blue violet, it would really be even more asking for attention because the high contrast between the quilt line and the background would be another thing to compete with the little mini quilts. Yes.
And yellow, isn't that one of those colors that...
Yellow, orange, bossy, snotty,
Yellow,
white.
yes. That it just takes,
Yeah.
so maybe a smaller amount of it, but by
yes, I said either
consolidating
smaller
it, yeah.
and covering up more of it, so adding that the wide border inside, or she could even take everything off of here and just lay in a very pale blue-violet center and put things back on, and that would work.
Okay.
So we just need to calm this background down because it's competing so much with the foreground, and the foreground is just so fun, it doesn't deserve that competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay?
Okay.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very good. Wonderful, Peter.